Hi, I'm Dan.
And I'm James.
And welcome to the Cornwall Property Podcast, where every week we bring you the latest news, hot topics and guidance around the Cornwall property market.
Stay tuned to be informed, inspired and to have any of your property related questions answered by trusted local property professionals.
Welcome back, I'm Dan.
I'm James.
And this is episode 66 of the Cornwall Property Podcast. And again, in our constant effort to try and bring you value, we brought you Rhodri, who has joined us again. Rhodri, thank you ever so much for joining us again. And Rhodri, who are you? What do you do? For those that didn't listen to our last episode of the podcast, who's Rhodri?
It's like a blind date episode. Hi, I'm Rhodri.
Tonight's
good. No, so yeah, I'm Rhodri. I'm a surveyor for Campshire Homes. I also head up operations for a surveying solutions application called Scaffold. And I also help out my wife with a family business, which is a small kind of family-run lettings company in West Cornwall.
Crikey.
Busy man.
Is there anything you don't do?
Sell cars.
Cooking, washing up.
Yeah. Fair play. Well, look, this is our Ask Dan and James, and in this instance, Rhodri episode. So we are here to help serve your needs, really. So we've been getting bombarded with questions, and we just try to pick out questions that are a little more focused to Rhodri and your expertise, really. So yeah, thank you for getting in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. And just remember, you can get in touch by going on to our social media platforms such as Facebook and Instagram. Failing that, you can get us on email, which is podcast@cl-property.com. But thank you to all our viewers and listeners who do get in contact, because without you guys, we wouldn't be able to have these questions that are about to be answered. So without further ado, we will start with our first question, which is from Joe in Tresillian, who asked the following. When on a house viewing, what are the top 5 areas I should be paying attention to and looking for? Great question.
Floor plan.
There we go. Yeah, values.
Rhodri, where would you go then? What would we do? You've walked into a property.
Yeah. Why am I buying the property?
Why
to
am I
live
buying
in,
property?
to rent it?
I'd say we're looking to buy it, to rent it.
Okay.
Yeah. Would you? Well, that's an interesting question already for me. Like, would that change? What
Absolutely.
you'd be looking at?
Yeah. I mean, if you're buying a property to develop it, you're looking at your floor plan, Captain Floor Plan over here, because you're looking at areas of development. You're looking at obviously the neighbouring properties.
Adding value.
How can you add value to that property? If you're looking to rent it, silly things. You're looking at where you're going to have to invest money, because it's all about your margins. Basically, do I need a new kitchen? What's the electrical conditions? Yes, you're going to have to get an EICR done regardless, but is there going to be a lot of rectifications needed? If you're buying it to live in, do you like the wallpaper? Do you know what I mean? So if you're buying the property for different reasons, there's different priorities that you should probably set yourself.
Would that change your survey outlook, or depending what survey?
No, because the survey, if I do a home buyers report, depending on the age of the building, for example, just a level 2, which are a lot more affordable, especially in Plymouth, effectively, it's still a 55-page document, and it covers basically from chimney to foundations without destructive investigations, and from ceiling to floor. So, regardless of what you're doing, there is information in there to relate to all aspects. Whether, we don't necessarily look about future development, but we'll give you we can give you an understanding of the condition of the property now, and if there's extra things you should really budget for that you haven't accounted for based on your initial viewing.
Got you. So Joe's gone to this viewing, Rhodri. She's got a notepad and pen. Where would you recommend that she looked first? So what sort of things should she be looking out for on this viewing?
It's silly things. I mean, a lot of the costs when you look at buying a house and stuff needs to be done are hidden, and they always are. So when you're walking,
I saw a post on LinkedIn. They're hidden under the carpets.
My ankle's still sore. No, generally it is. But
what was that? Sorry, just for those that weren't.
So effectively, it was a house and it had chipboard flooring. And what happened is there was just something simple, real easy fix. The sealant around the shower tray had perished.
Right.
So there was escape of water, but it had basically tracked into chip floor flooring underneath the stud wall into the bedroom next door. It absolutely saturated it, and someone had stepped through it. But instead of pulling the carpet back and just saying, when you're doing your survey, bear in mind it was an empty house as well, so there's no one with me.
Right.
And I was just walking, checking the walls and floors, and as you do, looking for a nice kind of place to put the carpet back, and I fell through the hole.
Oh,
and it was
I saw your photo. I didn't realise it was that big a hole with that.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I mean, silly things like that is you want to be checking: is there any spring in the floor? It's silly little things you don't need to spend years studying to become a surveyor to realise that there is spring, it creaks, there's movement, they're uneven. Looking at the walls, you're obviously looking for cracks, but don't be dissuaded by cracks, especially internally. Cracks are sometimes due to shrinkage, you know.
Right. And what would determine what sort of things in a crack should put your mind at ease? Maybe is it the size, the thickness of the gap? Is
Yeah,
it
I mean
the
hairline cracks,
directions?
but mostly the location. You get quite sporadic cracks in walls quite a lot, especially where the ceilings meet the walls and where the walls corner, because obviously you've got plaster and you've plastered at different stages. There's a different mix. They shrink and contract. When the moisture gets dried out over a prolonged period of time, it cracks where the joins are as opposed to in the middle. You start getting around windows and doors, you do need to start asking some questions. Is there any movement in the lintels? And, you know, but if there's a crack inside and outside, then you should start getting alarm bells, because effectively you're looking at the structure of the building. But again, don't always go to subsidence route. You can get seasonal movement, you know, you can get thermal movement, you can get differential cracking where you've got an old stone building with a cavity block wall at the back. You know, they've got different foundations. They're built at different times. They will move differently depending on the season and the fluctuations in temperatures.
On our last episode 65, we were looking at a residential property that James had picked up. And one thing that obviously we mentioned on there, but those are the listeners or viewers that weren't necessarily seen that episode yet, there's quite a lot of damp mould growth on the walls. That wouldn't be something to put you off, would it?
It shouldn't put you off. Again, with mould, it's a tough
understanding, I think, isn't it? Understanding why it's there.
Black mould doesn't mean necessarily damp. I mean, often you sometimes don't get mould from damp because it's not to the level and it doesn't come through to sit there and turn black. But obviously it can be the cause as well. Old houses were designed to breathe effectively. That was how they were designed to work, not like a modern day construction, which is sealed up from the outside in and to stop penetration with, you know, very, very less permeable concrete renders and concrete blocks and cavity insulation and a cavity and another
vapor control barriers even.
Yeah, it was basically it was a 600 mil thick wall, and they built it in the fact that hopefully the wall is so thick that the penetrating water will dry out at some point prior to it getting inside the property. You know, the moisture would come up through the ground and eventually it would dry out to the outside. So that's how they designed. But the problem is you get concrete renders put on top of these old buildings now, which doesn't allow that. You know, they were used to having lime, which is a lot more permeable. And also, you look at cracks in buildings, lime was a lot more flexible. So it did move somewhat with the building and didn't crack as much, whereas render's very rigid. And even if there's the slightest bit of movement, it gives.
So we've got damp and mould wouldn't necessarily be deterred by it, but just understanding where it is and why it might be.
Well, there's always a remedial measure to resolve that kind of thing as well.
Circulation, ventilation, surely. And we've got then cracks, don't be put off by cracks, but obviously find out, do a bit more homework. Where's the crack? Is it just internal? Is it externally? What the direction is? How thick is it? How long is it? And where is it? Was the main point from you. What other bits we got then? So where else we got? We got, I suppose, windows and doors. You check the windows, the quality of those.
I mean, I would.
The age of them, maybe.
You'd look at them and you'd maybe want to open one or two that if they look questionable. It's always good to know how old they look, because obviously anything past, was it 2002, 2004, you need a fencer.
Yes.
So, you know, if they're relatively new, it's sometimes quite good because
they're normally stamped, aren't they, on the windows? There's normally a stamp within.
Yeah. I mean, you can basically tell as well if you have a door. You can tell if it's relatively new or old, because if it's relatively new and it's got glazing, it will be safety glazed. If there's no evidence of safety glazing, it's probably an older door prior to that kind of requirement. So it gives you an idea of their general lifespan. But I mean, that's a lot to take in on your 15-minute viewing, isn't it? And that's why you've got people like me.
Of course. One that would always worry me, and I hate them because it's just the amount of issues we have, is roofs. Is there things that you should look for in the roof?
Do you know, I mean, if I haven't bought a house personally now. For a while, I've lived in mine for about 15 years, but I can't believe I bought a house without even looking in the loft.
No, really?
I don't think I'd buy a house. I'd always ask.
That's like buying a car without looking in the engine, I suppose. But I know that I'd know what I'm looking at anyway.
I've done that many a time as well. But no, I mean, but for me, if I lifted up an engine and I look at a car, is it clean? It's braille to me, basically. But if I open up a loft now,
So what would you look for in there then? Where would you look loft? What would be the things you'd look for?
The humidity. Okay. No, is there condensation mold sitting, and what kind of underfelt is it? Is it, if it's an old house, is it sarking paper? Is it rubber at all? Is it bitumen? Is it PVC, which was a fad that stopped? Is it breathable membrane? Do you know what I mean? All these little things just to make sure.
Foam insulation in terms of spray. What thoughts on that?
See, I don't want to put my life out like that. Ricks have just published some guidelines on that, because, I mean, the long and short of it for me is I wouldn't buy a house with it for one reason and one reason only. Not because it could potentially damage your timbers. It's hard to get off. If you have an issue with your roof, you basically,
It's the whole of the job, isn't it?
When you put insulation on the roof inside of your roof slopes, where is that going to retain the heat? Where is it going to stop the heat from leaving? But where's it going to gather? In your attic. I do not spend any time in my attic. I want the insulation on my ceilings.
If it's habitable, it's a different story with windows.
If it's habitable, it's different with windows.
Yeah.
But then ultimately, if it's habitable, you've probably gone through building regs and you've probably got some Celotex in there and all kinds of other bits behind the plasterboard. But realistically, why do you want to retain, regardless of the pros and the cons of this insulation and what it can do to your timbers or open cell, closed cell, all the the bits and bobs for it? Why would you want to retain heat in your attic?
I completely agree. And my old gig before property, I used to be an insulation salesman. Essentially, I used to sell insulation, and in the loft, it was always, why would you go for anything else but loft roll? It's pounds per square meter. It's pence. Like it's so cheap, but it just does the job.
It keeps the heat in the house.
Exactly that.
Not in the unused void above the house.
Obviously, people want to use storage in their lofts, don't they? And that's probably a reason
Vacuum
people
pack
might
bags.
vacuum. That's the way we're missing. You get your stilts, don't you? You get the stilts at the loft as well. But no, brilliant. Well, look, Joe, I don't want to go too long, but hopefully that helps give you a bit of a direction. And there's definitely some great points there from Rhodri. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
So the second question we've got for you, Rhodri, is from Sam in Wendron, and Sam asks, I currently manage 2 of my own buy-to-let properties, but with the legislation and regulations around lettings, I'm fearful of not ticking every box. Sam, you're not on your own. Therefore, I'm looking to move my management over to an agent and wondered what fees I should come to expect. So, see, James and I, we work with agents. Agents typically for us, we pay a percentage of our rental income. That's it. Yeah. So, is that what you would expect to see? Or obviously, I know you manage some properties as well as part of the your family business. So, yeah, I suppose what would your steer on this be?
So I mean, yes, I agree. If I was a landlord and I had more than 2 properties, obviously your liability increases, and I would probably look at getting a managing agent if you have a job as well. Obviously, people need to be able to get hold of you in emergencies, and if you're not available, you have a responsibility of the landlord to maintain the health and safety of your property and your tenants, as set out in the tenancy agreement. But effectively, pricing wise, yes, you often do look to pay a range percentage. I think you find a lot of agents, the more properties you've got, the more deal they'll do with you, which is understandable. I know I've worked in a lot of lettings agency. I've worked for Countrywide. I've worked for some, in Miller Countrywide, Stratton Creeper. I was head of property management, so I have an idea of the kind of deals that they do. And I've worked for an independent as well. And, they can range anything between 8% and 15% plus VAT, depending on how naive the landlord can be. I think 10% is kind of a current fair asking price. Myself, I do it slightly differently. I don't necessarily believe that a house that rents for £1,200 a month is going to be more work for myself than a house at £650. Particularly, you look at St Ives. We talk about housing prices in previous episodes. A 1-bedroom flat in St Ives, crikey, that could be worth £800. A 1-bedroom flat in Penzance, £550. Realistically, same amount of work. So the family business that I help out in, we just charge a flat rate per unit. So yeah, I mean, it's just fairer from the landlord, I think, more and foremost, because just because a house rents for more money doesn't necessarily mean there's more work involved in it. I understand why letting agents do it, and I'm not saying that they're robbing you or anything like that. It's a kind of industry standard, and that's what people have worked to.
And different agents have different overheads, so it's
exactly that. So, but no, for myself, I think it's a nice way of charging people. And
what would your kind of flat rates be? Would they be £100? Is that what you were able to say? Or
no? Well, I mean, it very much depends. I mean, I think £50 to £70 is a fair rate for a property when you look at the works involved. With the inspections on 3 months and 6 monthly basis, which is very common, ensuring that all safety certification and compliance is kept in line, dealing with the emergencies, 7 days a week. It's not just 9 to 5 with property management. If their boiler breaks on a Sunday in the morning, I'm not going to fix that boiler myself, but I need to be available to get hold. Well, I won't be available. My wife will be available to get hold of a contractor. You have to have a leads relationship with contractors, and also you've got your overheads. So again, just an example, myself, my family business, it's a RICS regulated firm. we've got client money protection, you've got business accounts, you've got Zoopla fees. Some might have Rightmove fees if they're doing really well, if they've got Rightmove fees.
What I love about the idea of with the sounds of your business is if it was you doing the inspections, if you helped out, depending on how often you helped out, but you've got someone of your expertise, your quality, doing those inspections. Crikey, you can't have anyone better really to spot any issues before it really gets any further.
No, I mean when my wife decided within the family that we wanted to have a small kind of business, we went belts and braces. It's, if anything, we're a bit over the top for the small size company that we are, but I've always grown up, if you're going to do a job, do it properly.
Sleep at night.
Well, no, exactly that. As I said, I said a landlord, if they've got more than 1 or 2 properties, there's almost an obligation to do things correctly. It's the same as a letting agent. If you've got 7 properties or you've got 700 properties, your obligations do not change, and what you need to be able to provide doesn't change. So therefore, the setup should be the same.
No, sounds fair. And for example, figures for one thing that I bear in mind, Sam, is agents, they'll give you a fee, a fixed fee perhaps, as Rhodri said, maybe 10% plus or no VAT included, maybe depending on the company. But what you want to check, and James and I have been falling foul, this is the small print.
Terms of businesses.
So what are the extra costs that you may incur when a tenancy runs out? The administrative costs for that, the remarketing,
checking out,
deposits,
tenancy renewals.
Exactly. Also, all these extra bits, are they included? Aren't they included? So it's then working out, well, how much is that going to cost me if they're not included? And then working out, well, what actually is it worth paying a little bit more percentage-wise for those to be included? So it's just not necessarily just looking at a flat rate or an interest, a percentage rate. It's also, look, what actually is included in that, because we've got an agents where we pay 10-12%, for example, but we've then got to pay extra for the extra marketing, check in, check out,
inventories,
all the inventories, things like that. And then, but we've also got one which we pay a slightly higher percentage, but all of that is included. So it's, again, there's
transparency is the thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean,
there's so many ways to
in
skin a
all
cat.
walks of life. I mean, let's say I survey as well, and the company I work for, Camshore, they're brilliant because we're very transparent with our pricing structure. And again, with the Mcatee Property Group, which is the family letting side of things, again, we're very transparent. You can go onto the website and it basically just says we charge X amount of property, and there is a X amount fee to set up the tenancy. That is it. There's no added fees. Everything is included within those fees.
So black and white where you are from day one.
Yeah, and as I said, there's other agents out there that it might be different in terms of the amounts or the structure of percentage, but effectively transparency, I think, is key, because that's how you build the trust. I want a landlord to know. I want to be able to work. I don't work for the landlord, I do, but I work with them as well, because I can't do my job without their input. So I need to be in a trusting relationship with them to know that they know I've got their best interests at heart, and I'm not just trying to. Yes, it's a business, need to make money, but it's easier to make money with a well-built foundation relationship than it is to squeeze in £25 for a tenancy renewal or £10 for a property inspection.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I suppose it's a case of, and where for your properties that you manage, is it a certain area? Is it throughout Cornwall? Is it where?
No, it's mainly focused kind of Truro down to St Just. It's West Cornwall based, but again, there is some good agents in that neck of the woods as well. So again, if you're looking at pricings, all I would say is speak to a couple of people. If you're looking at current prices, but the biggest thing is read the fine print. Don't just say what's your management fee, because that's not asking the right question. Asking the right question is, what would you charge me to set up my tenancy, manage it, and deal with all the administrative sides of changing tenancies? That's the right question to ask, and then get maybe 1 or 2 people, get a corporate, get a local independent. Some people prefer the corporate side of things. Some people prefer the local independent side of things. Get a base, ask the right questions, and that will, that's your best advice.
That sounds fair.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Anything new there, James?
Again, just in the questions when you're doing it, like some of the corporate firms, like, again, we've fallen foul of this. Like you'll have the property set up for the tenant, and then there's an issue that comes up. Then suddenly you're passed to a maintenance team who is up in Exeter or even further north, and like you're trying to talk to that maintenance team about, well, actually, this is what's going on, and they've got no clue because they've never been around there. But it's independent. That agent has actually been there themselves, and you're dealing with that maintenance issue. That person is it's more personable, and they've been there and experienced that particular property. So they know what you're talking about. How can they when they're halfway up the country? It just doesn't work for us. We found that's very difficult.
But it comes down to, as I said, it's very much personal preference. So, for example, if you're buying a car, you can get a Ford Fiesta. That will get you from A to B. It will. Or you can buy a Tesla. That will also get you from A to B.
But you've got to stop at C just to charge it, though, haven't you?
Well, why are you going to C on the way to B?
But no, just a long way around.
But no, but you're not necessarily get what you pay for, but everything has a different purpose.
Yeah.
Effectively, corporates, yes, you will get sent to different departments. And I've worked in corporates. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to set up a corporate business in the way I structure my company. And the way Camshore, my surveying company that I work for, works. We're not corporate, and we deliberately don't want to be corporate because we want to have that personal relationship and trust. But with corporate comes departmentalization, which plays to people's strengths. So you'll have a person that is solely responsible for your gas. So her only job is to make sure that your gas safety certificate is done on time and compliant. That's their only job.
The gas lady.
The gas lady might be a guy, the gas guy.
Yeah.
So there is benefits knowing that you have a specialist looking after different areas.
Personally.
But as I said, I've worked in that and I see the benefits of it, but that comes with mass volume. You get to the point where if you imagine if you're a lettings agent and you had excess of 200, 250 units, you do need to start departmentalizing because effectively you'll lose track of where you're at and you need to focus in on different areas. So the bigger the company, the more chance you'll have that kind of, even if it's Cornwall based, for example, you will still have local kind of agencies that will end up having to departmentalize their property visits, their deposits, their gas, their reconciliations, their statements because of the volume and trying to keep track of where they're at and who's doing what for what property.
It comes back to that quality over quantity, isn't it? It's where's that line? Where is that quality going to then start being jeopardized? Is it when you get to 50 units? Is it when you get to... So it's just finding that barrier. Where is your capacity, I think? And again, I think, how do you get that answer? Speaking with the agents, finding landlords that have got properties with the agent and getting their feedback. I think that's the only real honest, open way of getting that information, isn't it, really?
Yeah. I mean, if it was me, if I was ever in a benefit, I don't have any houses that I let out. Banker mum and dad hasn't hooked me up yet. Apparently it's a £9 billion pot.
Yeah.
But no, I think I would want to speak to and ask the question of the person that I'll be dealing with. Yeah. That's a personal preference. I'm not going to knock a corporate because I've worked for them and there's some lovely people at work there and some great employees and very hardworking, and they would look out the best for the landlords. But for me personally, I want to be able to have that conversation. I actually want to be able to maybe meet them at a property, have a chat with them and know that they're the ones dealing with my questions as well. Again, but that's personal preference over any, that's not professional advice.
No, appreciate that. With your personal family business, is there a type of property that you're not able to work with, wouldn't want to work with, or is it literally open book? You're happy to discuss and look at everything, or HMOs, holiday lets, those sort of things as well? Or?
I think I'd steer away from holiday lets because, again, close to my heart, in the previous episodes we talked about obviously local communities and all that kind of thing. I feel I can't really, I say the word champion, I'm not by any means a champion, but I can't argue about communities having empty houses and then, have a
portfolio with a few
but for me it's more I like to deal with residential properties. I'm not the answer to the housing crisis. I never will be the answer, but again, if I can help a small minority of people that might need help, then I will. And so it's mainly residential properties and stuff like that. So but yes,
brilliant. Well, look, guys, if people were of interest, maybe, well, again, we had Sam here. Joe had a couple of residential properties. Maybe that was of interest. Then how could they get in touch with you?
Again, I've got a website. I've got on there you can get in contact. It's got my contact details. It's mcateepropertygroup.co.uk.
And how's that spelled? Just for those that aren't a bit illiterate like ourselves.
MCATEE.
Fantastic. So okay, so get in touch with you either there.
Yeah.
On LinkedIn, you're active on LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn. You can message me on LinkedIn. There's a Mcatee Property Group Facebook and Instagram. Sorry, Insta. I'm not down with the kids.
Down with the kids, yeah.
But no, yeah. So, but again, it's it's something where even if you just wanted a bit of advice about an agent that you might be speaking to, or you're not even based, I just like talking to people and giving some advice.
Geek in general, yeah.
I wouldn't say geek because that would entail I know what I'm talking about.
Fair point. That's it. Well, you're sounding great. And with regards to Camshaw, that is, again, if people are interested, there's obviously a Camshaw website. Get in touch via you personally or via the...
Yeah, so either, again, Camshaw, LinkedIn is a great place to get hold of me. Again, if you just want to see what I'm up to and what kind of problems I find, if I find good defects, I'm going to put one up today. Because
you document well. It's quite. I do find it interesting.
I went to one yesterday. It will be going up today about roof spread. Basically, they didn't. When you have a house, you've got all your rafters. Basically, they're attached to the main walls with wall plates and straps. But this one didn't actually have any kind of gable end straps. So the gable end wall started to bow out a little bit, and you could see some cracking above the windows at first floor level. The roof tiles were spreading. You could see that they'd pushed them out a little bit, and you could just see all these little points. Real simple fix, put some gable straps in, go in your loft with a couple of, pull it back together and attach the roof structure to the walls. But if you don't, it's just going to keep bowing out. So small fix for an easy solution, or leave it and end up with an open plan loft.
Ventilation sorted.
No, Camshaw, LinkedIn, or again, website is a great place to get hold of us. We've got a fantastic team that can basically answer all your queries. But again, if you want to speak to me, you can find me on social media outlets.
Fantastic.
Brilliant. Just remember, you can get in contact with here at the Cornwall Property Podcast by going onto our social medias such as Insta and also Facebook.
Insta, you got to do that.
Yeah, that's it, Insta. But you can also get us on email, which is podcast@cl-property.com. But thank you for your fountain of knowledge here today at the podcast. It's been really good. Thank you very much.
Definitely. Well, guys, that's it for episode 66. So it's goodbye from me.
Bye from me.
And a goodbye from
me.
Hey, fantastic. Guys, till next time. Thanks for joining us.